The following is a production of Gearhead Media. All right, welcome back to the All Automotive Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Clausen. And today I want to talk about this L87 GM engine recall. As many of you know, I do own a 2024 Silverado with the L87 6.2 liter engine, which has been recalled for loss of propulsion. So basically what's happening is some of these engines were unfortunately put together with a crankshaft finish that was not to specs, which has caused some damage to a lot of them and also caused a lot of pain for a lot of people. So in the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to go over this recall, and we're going to also discuss my results of my oil analysis. I sent my oil off to Lake. If you didn't listen to my previous episode, go back and listen to it. Lake Speed Jr., the motor oil geek, Speediagnostix. I ordered a kit, sent my oil in. We're going to discuss that too. So in the next 30 minutes or so, sit back and relax. I'm glad you are all here, and welcome to the All Automotive Podcast. All right, so a couple months ago, I got a letter in the mail. Well, I got a notification that my Silverado, the engine that's in it, was involved in a huge recall. So this is affecting almost 600,000 vehicles nationwide, and it's it's a problem. So I wanted to discuss this recall, number one, and there's so much misinformation out there. I kind of wanted to try and maybe clear some things up for people, and then also explain some of the things that these dealers are facing and GM is facing as far as parts availability and misconceptions with changing the oil viscosity. And so there's a lot to unpack, and I wanted to start it out with going over the actual recall. So we're on revision number 6. This was released last month in June. They are getting all their ducks in a row, basically, is what's going on to get these engines diagnosed, get the customers in, and get these things figured out. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot to unpack. So if there's several different situations that have come up with several different people. So most of the research that I've done with these, if they have had a catastrophic failure, and what I mean by that is the engine locks up, and what happens is because those crankshafts weren't finished correctly, they were rough, and that created some wear on the bearings. And the bearing is the go-between between the piston rod and the actual crankshaft. So it's a metal sleeve that's made out of certain types of metal, tin, copper, to name a few. And we'll get into that when I go over my oil analysis that I got back from Speediagnostix. So like I said, there's a couple of different scenarios that have gone on. So either your engine has blown and you've had it replaced, or engine has locked up and it's been replaced, or you're potentially going to have an engine blow up. And like I said, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of uncertainty. So I wanted to go over all this so that if you do own one of these vehicles, or you do have a friend or a colleague or whatever that has one of these vehicles, let's, calm down. And, I know it's a big deal. I'm spending a lot of money for this truck too. So it upsets me, but with my experience in the dealership and those things with recalls like this, it's not the first time. So, they have the experience and the knowledge to get to the bottom of this, and they're getting to the bottom of it quickly. And if you've got something coming, you obviously are going to get it. And if your engine fails the testing that they do, it's going to get a replacement engine. Whether or not it's going to be in a timely manner is because that there are no parts available. So the first hurdle is obviously the parts, but getting back to the scenarios, like I said, your engine is either blown up under 10,000 miles, and that's my experience. And anytime you have a rough crankshaft to bearing surface, it's going to create wear. I mean, pick up a handful of sand in your hand and then put it on your arm and then rub it back and forth. And that's very crude, but that's kind of what's going on. And that's the roughness that you would feel. It's on a very small level, but if that crankshaft is not smooth as glass, you're going to have some issues. So what they're looking for and what the recall is doing is, and we're on revision 6, and revision 6 is also to help the dealer technicians go through the procedure. So the first thing that we're seeing is if your engine has been replaced, they want to know what the date code is on that engine. So if you've already had your engine replaced, like say I bought my 2024 and I got it in November of 23, and under 10,000 miles within the first 6 months, I've had my engine replaced. So this is kind of what started this whole thing. So if you go to the NHTSA website, and what that is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration government's website where you can search for your recall. So let's just do that. Let's back up a little bit and let's look for this recall. So you can put your VIN number or your license plate number in there. And I would recommend just going and taking a screenshot of your VIN number and sticking your VIN number in there, because sometimes the license plate search doesn't work very well. And I stuck it in there and it comes up with my recall. However, there is no remedy available for my particular run of VIN number. So, and I just got my letter that says it's dated May. It's right here in my hand. Basically tells us what we already know, is that the connecting rod to crankshaft engine components in these vehicles may have a manufacturing defects that can lead to engine damage or engine failure. So, and then what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is inspect your vehicle. So the first thing out of the chute was parts aren't available for your truck. So once we get parts, we're going to send you another letter and then tell you to call the dealership. So if you guys are calling the dealerships and you're getting all kinds of different answers, it's because, number one, maybe the person you get on the phone hasn't educated themselves enough on this. And I think at this point, this is going back to April. I think at this point,
we will be back after a short break.
Hey everybody, Matt here. Wanted to take a minute to talk about our main sponsor, G-Force Automotive. Did you know that they're a certified service center through Auto Value? What does that get you, you say? Well, that gets you 3 years or 36,000-mile warranty on select repairs. Want to know more about that? Visit their website at www.gforceautomotive.net. Click on that banner that says Make an Appointment and make your appointment today. We're proud to have them on board as the main sponsor of the All Automotive podcast. So now let's get back to it. More of the All Automotive podcast. They're up to speed with what's going on and what's happening. It's just the due to the information that's out there, and because the internet is what it is, we have, as customers, have the ability to search. AI is developing at a very fast rate. We can type in to Gemini or Chat GPT or whatever AI you use, And you can get a lot of information in a short period of time. And it's all it's doing is looking for information that's out there. And sometimes these letters go out to the customers before the service departments know anything about it. And back when I was working at the dealership, this was kind of a problem, and it still apparently is. And in my conversation with the people that I talked to at a local GM dealer, and their comment to me was, hey, it's just like when we work together, we're the last ones to know. The customers know first. And we were kind of joking back and forth, but, sometimes it's a reality. So, again, it's like anything else in life. And I've had these conversations before on my podcast where it's like, okay, let's be adults and let's be civil. I understand, I get worked up too when I spend some money on something and that potentially has an issue, but my truck's under warranty. If the engine blows up tomorrow, it's going to go to the Chevrolet dealer. It's going to get diagnosed and it's going to get fixed. Whether or not it's in a timely manner and that kind of stuff, it's just okay. It's just roll with the punches. It is what it is. They're going to take care of it. They're under an obligation due to their thing, or you can do what you want to do. I mean, there's people out there that have gotten their vehicles bought back for way smaller reasons than this, and it's crazy just to be that rude or upset with someone just because they either are unsure of what's going on, which, it's their job really to know what's going on. But if you're more abrasive and it's like with anything in life, if you want to get good information and you want to be, want to know exactly what's going on and you want to get helped correctly, then, be a decent human being. Because a lot of times, again, the people at the dealership don't know what we know because we get the letters first. So there was some dragging of feet, as far as GM was concerned, as far as this condition was concerned. So there was 3 different separate investigations into this problem. And they're like, we don't see anything. But, if the engine dies while you're going 80 miles an hour down the road, pulling your camper trailer, or without, either way, it's, you're in the fast lane trying to get over to, it's a problem. Yeah, it's definitely a problem. So it's a safety related concern. So that's why it's on the NHTSA's website. So if you go in and you just type in Silverado, you can come up with all of these documents that are involved with this. There are a ton of documents. So I found the last revision of the actual recall, and this is exactly what the dealers get. And you print it out and you take a look at it and you go over all this stuff and you can get the part numbers and see all the parts that they put on when they put the engine in, how long it takes, what the technician's going to get paid, what the labor code is, and all that stuff. So there's lots of information that we can get that used to not be able to get because it's on the NHTSA's website. So again, getting back to the first step. So if you've had your engine replaced already, they're date coded. They know exactly when these crankshafts were not done correctly, and they kind of probably have got it figured out to it's between this date code and this date code. And the crankshafts that were put in from XYZ crankshaft company are the ones that are having the problem, because this isn't going to happen if there's, if it was machined correctly. So, there's lots of things going around with what happened and where it came from and that kind of stuff. But you can rest assured that in my experience with GM and their recalls and their engineering departments, there's numbers on everything. There's broadcast codes on everything. That everything that's in your vehicle is all tied out into a sheet, into the build sheet. So, okay, so if you want to know if your engine that was replaced already was one of the ones that was bad, they know the date codes. Hey, anything inside this date code potentially has another issue. So yes, unfortunately, if your engine got replaced early on, the potential exists that it still may exhibit the issue at hand. So that compounds the thing. So you're like, oh my gosh, you got to put another engine in this thing. Well, hey, if it's not any good, or if it's within the date codes of it being bad, I think the problem that they're having is when they obviously they've got a third party that's doing, it's another plant that's doing these crankshafts. So they had two of them, I think, that were doing these crankshafts, and they're not really sure. But rest assured, they'll get to the bottom of it and get it closer. So if you've had your engine replaced, unfortunately, again, it's a bad situation. And, if it's something that's bad enough to where you're like, this truck, come on. It's free country. Go and trade the thing in on whatever you want. But I'm telling you right now, Dodge, Ford, Toyota, they all have their own issues, and they're going to have their own problems. And whatever brand that you think is going to go and be better, then just go ahead and do it. If you think that there's you're not going to be any problems if you go buy a brand new F-150, I got news for you, buddy. Because I own a repair facility and I work on everything now, and we're not just working on GM vehicles anymore. I'm not at the GM dealer anymore. I did a search, and, the Ford F-150 and the Dodge Ram are up there in amount of times we've worked on, over the course of our career, of our, existence at G-Force Automotive. We've worked on a lot of Ford, Dodge, and Chevy trucks. And it's in that order. So, we don't see a whole lot of Toyota Tundras and Toyota Tacomas or what have you. And so those are lower on the list because of the amount of them that are around. But, again, we're in mid-Michigan. Come on. The big three. We're in everybody's backyard. So the penetration, and especially in our area, the dealer penetration and how many cars are available for these people are, we don't have too many foreign cars dealerships in our town. We're not a huge city. So we've got the good old American cars, and like I said, if this is a problem for you, move on, put it in the rearview mirror. I wish you luck. And if you keep listening to my podcast, I'm going to continue on this story. This is going to be a follow-up. I just wanted everybody to know where I am in this particular situation. So if you've had your engine replaced, they're going to look at the date code and tell you, no, it's outside or inside. So again, if it falls within a certain date code, then guess what? You're going to get another engine. Great. So moving on. So if it hasn't been replaced and you've got a letter to go in that parts are available, what they're doing now is we have an oscilloscope tool that we use to check electrical patterns. And what they are doing for us now is, or what they're doing for the dealer technicians, what the dealer technicians are instructed to do is to install a knock sensor into an empty boss on the engine. And what I mean by boss, there's basically a bolt hole. So we get the bolt and we put the knock sensor on the side of the block and we connect it to our picoscope, which will give us the readings from that knock sensor. And they go through a procedure. And I was when I was reading through this, I was just like, okay, so you capture that data from that vehicle, and then you upload that data to GM's programming website, and it gives you an answer back. It says there's too much noise. We hear this amount of noise. We know what kind of noise it makes because we've done this investigation. We've got a whole team involved with this, and this is the noise that it's going to make because they know. They're like, okay, so let's get one of these bad crankshafts, put one together, and let's see what kind of noise it makes. And then first we're going to run it, and get similar mileages. So I guarantee pretty much that you can, they're testing it. And what's taken this long is they're in the middle of it. They're trying to get to the bottom of it, but because the government's involved and says, hey, we got a big problem with this. Okay, well, we need to catch up and get we're not just going to stick engines in every one of them because not every one of them is going to fail. And I'll get to that when we go over this, my oil analysis that I got back from Lake Speed Jr. and Speediagnostix. So now you capture this data. It's a 20-second clip, and you catch the data for 20 or a minute, and then you select a chunk and you download it as a file. And then when you're on the GM's website, and the dealer technicians can upload this to GM, and then it goes through whatever it listens to, and it'll tell you if it passes or fails. So a lot of this revision is helping the technicians is showing the technicians what to do as far as uploading this and getting that all. So you process this file. They call it a CSV file. Anyway, so an automated diagnostics will run, which will give you the result at the end, determining whether the engine has passed or failed the test. So green is pass, red is fail. So then it says, does it pass? Yes, no. If it passes, then here's what we're going to do. And we touched on this a little bit on my last episode. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put different oil in it, 0W40 instead of 020, to give you what this is going to do. And a lot of people are like, oh, oil's not going to take care of it. Okay, well, if you've watched any of Lake Speed Jr.'s YouTubes, you know that the difference in viscosity has a large thing to do with how things wear. So because they wanted to get us the best gas mileage possible, and they had the technology to get the tolerances to where they could be to get you the best mileage possible, they recommend the 0W20. Okay, and we're going to go over that when I go over my list, my engine oil analysis. So what they're going to do is change your oil to 0W40, give you a new oil cap, which recommends that weight. And a lot of the other 6.2 liters recommend 0W40 to start with. So, and what Lake was saying is it increases the oil bearing clearance. So the gap the oil is between the crank and the bearing. So if the thicker the viscosity is, the more it fills in those little gaps. And we're talking about little gaps. So it's going to give you better coverage. Now I'm on some Facebook groups, and there's guys that, oh man, it's quieter, it runs good, the oil pressure is higher. Obviously, all things are true. So what they're trying to do with this is prevent any kind of issue that may arise from here on out. So if you pass, you're not making any noise. But just in case, we're going to tell you to put this 0W40 in, which guys, come on. If it's going to fail, it's going to fail. Whether we put 040 in it or 020 in it. And we'll get to the details of my oil analysis, which hopefully will bring it into clearer light. So owner's manual insert, which recommends the different oil. And then obviously if you need your engine, then, obviously they're going to schedule you from there. So Tonawanda is working overtime. The plant that makes the L87, I know that for a fact, and they are trying to produce these engines quickly and to the best of their ability, which I can imagine there's going to be super, super scrutiny on anything that comes out of there now. But, and they're going to pay close attention to the crankshafts and the bearings and all how that goes together. So with 597,000 vehicles involved in this recall, and we're just scratching the surface with those that have been inspected and either repaired, replaced, or got recommended new oil. We're in for a long road. This isn't going to be an overnight thing. It's because, again, if you need an engine, I was told that they go on back order, they come off a back order. If it's down and because of the recall, you take priority over somebody else that's outside of warranty. And, there's the other ones that are, well, I've had mine's outside the recall and it blew up. And okay, so what? So they're also looking at expanding the recall, and everything is like a case by case basis. So my recommendation for you, based on my history working at the GM dealer, and it's been a long time since I've been there, so a lot of things have changed, and don't take this the wrong way or take this to be gospel, is that if you want to try and make a case for yourself by saying, I've replaced this engine, it is the same engine, and you can tell that by your option label. It's a QR code on your B-pillar. It will scan. You can scan it with your iPhone, and it puts all the codes into a notepad, and just look for L87. If you got one of those and you think GM owes you something, then give them a call. But you got to be cordial, nice, appropriately speak to these people, because I understand, you spent a lot of money for your truck to start with, and then it's out of warranty, and you were told that you had to spend, I'm hearing $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 on replacing the engine. So, it's hard to swallow sometimes, and I understand it's a big expense. And if somebody told me I had to spend that much money on something that it wasn't covered and all that stuff, I would be upset, but I would go about it a certain way so that I could be happy with myself and know that these people that work at the dealerships are just like you and just like anyone else. They get up and put their pants on the same way. So let's have a little bit of respect and treat them accordingly. Because, at the end of the day, we didn't make it. We didn't build it. We're just trying to help you get it fixed. And I've said that before in some of my podcasts. And this is really what strikes me as strange on some of these Facebook groups. And I know it's like, Facebook. Okay. But there are individuals in there that are, you can tell by the way they type their stuff that they're upset about it. And I get it. But at least be a decent human being. I get it. Okay, so let's go over our oil analysis. That's pretty much the recall in a nutshell, and we've taken quite a bit of time discussing that. So back in June, I sent off an oil sample to Speediagnostix, and you can go to their website, speediagnostix.com, and order a kit. They'll send you a pre-shipped kit where it's got a shipping label in it. They've stopped using the U.S. Postal Service. Now they're using FedEx. They've got some new stuff. So get with Lake and figure that out for yourself. But I ordered 2 so that I could get a good basis of what's going on. And so I sent off my oil analysis now. And when he gives you the oil analysis back, if you've ever watched any of his videos, he goes over a lot of the stuff. So I've been using 0W20 AMS oil and a Wix XP oil filter because that's how I'm wired. It takes synthetic oil. And I'm an AMS oil dealer, and they use a ton of R&D on their stuff to help prevent any kind of issues and help create longevity in any of your equipment. So think about it as if you owned a big excavating company, and your equipment, you rely on your equipment every day. So you don't want to shortchange your equipment. You want to take care of your equipment. You got to take care of your stuff. Now I know it's just like, whatever, I get in and drive it. But there's a lot of us out there that are, that when this came out, concerned. I'm concerned about what's going on. So that's how I got hooked up with Lake, and I'm so appreciative that he was on the podcast and explained a lot of things when it comes to motor oil. So back in June, I sent him off my sample. I had just about 5,000 miles on it, actually 4,750 miles on that particular oil when I changed it. I have 22,000 miles on my truck. I haven't had any issues with it, engine, as far as noise, oil consumption, any of that stuff. So sent him off. So the first thing he comes back with after 4,000 miles, after almost 5,000 miles, my viscosity was 7.3. So if you go to AMSOIL's website, they start off in any 0W20 is going to be in that range. So I got a green check mark there. So Link does a great job with, and Speediagnostix does a great job with the things that are good, could be an issue, or is bad. So he does the traffic light stuff. So red, yellow, green. And I didn't have any yellows or reds. So I've got 22,000 miles on my truck. It was one of the first few that were built in 2024. And so my viscosity was good. The next one is the oxidation value. And the oxidation is the chemical breakdown of the oil. So the higher the number, the greater oxidation, which means greater oil degradation. So mine was within a pretty good limit, 59.4. So we were right there in the green range. So the next one is how much fuel dilution there was, and mine was 1.35. Mine's all, as we know, these L87s are directly injected. And if there's an issue with your fuel, too much fuel in your gas, and too much gas in your oil can cause things to wear, or can cause check engine lights and so forth. So the fuel dilution lowers the viscosity, and over 5% indicates there's too much gas. So I got 1.35. So there was no water in my oil, so that was negative. The next one was glycol, which is your coolant. The coolant is propylene glycol. So he's just looking for the glycol, and that was negative. So then we're looking at the potassium. Potassium can also indicate coolant contamination because it's an additive that they put in the coolant. So mine was negative on that. I had 1. So silicone. So let's see what silicone is. The next one down. Silicone can come from anti-foam additive in the oil, airborne dust entering the engine, silicone sealants, and piston and bore wear. So my silicone number was 13, which he's telling me is green, and that is a good thing. So a good thing about what Lake and Speediagnostix does is the first sheet, which I'm reading you the numbers off of, is telling you what your numbers are. So the second sheet he gives you really goes over what each category is, and now the additives: the calcium, the sodium, the magnesium, the phosphorus, the zinc, the moly, and the boron. So these are all the additives that the oil companies put in it. And, AMSOIL does a good job of these additives. So now this is where we got into the story of, I've been running this kind of oil and I want to switch to this oil. Okay, well, if you switch from this brand of oil to this brand of oil and you don't know what the additives package is on brand X, but you're using brand Y, which has a different additive package, the first oil change, you could potentially create a situation where these additives don't talk nice to each other because you can't get all the oil out from the previous oil change unless you're doing a flush, which is going to cost you twice as much because you really put the replacement X oil in and run it for 200-300 miles, drain it. So it's mixing, it's getting all the old additives out, and then you can start fresh with your new X oil. So keep that in mind when you're switching oil, that there's different additive packages, there's different moly, there's different zinc, and there's different magnesium that's in these oils. So I would caution you there on that. And he's had several videos explaining all that. So now let's get to the nuts and bolts of why I wanted my oil analyzed, is because this recall is because there's wear. There's wear on the bearings and wear in which certain metals in your oil will tell you. And I know everybody's, just cut your oil filter apart and open it up and look at it. Yeah, okay, that's good. But it doesn't tell me. And you're going to see maybe some particles. You might see some or you might not see any. And if you're doing this on the first oil change, you're definitely going to see some. It's obvious. Your oil, as you go along, the metals should come down because not everything is wearing all the time. So your highest wear rate is in the first 1,000 miles. So that's where talking to him and having that episode and talking to us about this oil makes so much more sense now, why they're telling us to change to the 0W40 if your engine passes. Why not? You got more bearing, you got more distance between the crank and the oil is thicker. So it's like a thicker piece of paper. It's going to fill in those imperfections and create more of a distance between the two so that you don't create any excessive wear. And if there is, like I said, it fills in the gaps. So let's get to the wear metals. So my total metals was 28. So of those metals, at the top is iron. So the iron, and he does it, like I said, he does a good job of telling you what the iron is. Iron, it's the blocks iron. So that's telling me that there's, and it's 15. So I've got somewhere. Yeah. But is it bearing wear? No. It's iron. They don't make the rod bearings with iron. So again, educate yourself on exactly what we're dealing with here. So now the iron, typically indicates cylinder wear or valve train wear. Okay. So we're good there. And then the next one was chromium is 1, and they make the pistons out of chromium. I can tell you that. And then typically indicates piston wear. So if you have high chromium, do a leak down check. So if you're a tech, you want to do a leak down check, put pressure in the cylinder and see what the leak down rate is. So if it's within a certain range, then you know you've got some issues. So now the copper, tin, and the lead. These are the ones that we're looking for when we're talking about the bearings. So pay attention, turn the radio up, turn your volume up. Copper, tin, and lead typically indicates bearing wear, bushing, or a distributor gear wear. Okay, we don't have a distributor, but Lake does a lot of stuff for race cars and race people. And they have distributors. Not anymore. So the copper, tin, and lead. So my copper was 5. My tin was 3. My lead was 0. All within the green. So if you see high copper and tin numbers in your analysis, then you might either be low in your mileage, or you just bought it and it's wearing. Okay, it's going to wear. It's going to wear at a higher rate in the first 1,000 miles. As you go along, it's going down. So now I've got 20,000 miles on it. I've used 0W20 its entire life and a certain brand, certain oil filter. And we've got low readings in the bearings. So I'm going to say that I'm going to and I didn't switch to the 0W40. I changed it with 0W20 because I haven't been told to change yet. And if I do, I will oblige and change it with that oil, because really the viscosity part of it, that 7.3 number I was talking about, that's going to go up to probably like 9 something. So we'll see. So then we got aluminum, magnesium, titanium, and nickel. So like I said, he's adding all of these up, and that's what's given me the 28. So magnesium indicates valve guide wear. The aluminum could be in the pistons as well. The titanium is valve springs or anything that would be made of that particular metal. And then the nickel is 1. So aluminum, I had 2, magnesium 1, titanium 0, nickel 1. So my total metals was 28. And then you just take that number and divide it by the number of mileage that you have on that particular oil change. So my wear rate per 1,000 was 5.9, which is in the green as well. So at the bottom of this, all results were within the normal range, and the wear per 1,000 miles is around 5 parts per million. So now all these readings were in parts per million. So think about that. You've got 1 million parts, and only 15 of them are iron. So not excruciatingly high, but I've only got 20,000 miles on it, so I'm probably still getting a little bit of piston wear, and it's still breaking in because it's kind of new. And it is. Matt's got a lead foot. Anyways, so he's saying that my drain interval can be extended because of my wear rate. So do my next oil change between 6,000 and 7,000 miles, and let's see where you're at now. So if you've got a high wear rate, you want to be changing that oil sooner. So within the first 10,000 miles, you probably should have had 4 oil changes. And you go back to some of my earlier episodes where we were doing those myths, automotive myths. Yeah, you should change your oil in the first 500 miles. It's not a myth. That's something you should do. or 1,000 miles to get that metal out of there. We want a new filter in there. You know, the Ace Delco filters are great, but it still can't filter everything. So we want to get those metals out of there and then change the oil and extend it to 3,000, 4,000. Change it at 1,000, change it at 4,000, that's 3,000. Change it again. You know, it's only a $65,000 truck. What could it hurt? Right? So, again, I just wanted to, that's pretty much my oil analysis in a nutshell. And what he's telling me is I can go, I want to establish a trend. And if you can establish a trend, and trust me, this was not expensive. I mean, really, I think it's $50 or something like that. Go to Speediagnostix.com and order a kit. I ordered 2. It came in a box. I got the one just sitting there waiting. All of them are numbered. And then the next sheet I'm going to get is going to have this particular sample in there and the next one. So I'm going to have previous samples that's going to move to the right. And once you get a number of different samples, you can tell, am I due to get this engine pulled apart and ripped apart and change things because it's my race car and we want to get the best, we want to win, right? So you could do this on anything, your old vehicle, your new vehicle, whatever you think. So hopefully in the last few minutes, we've gotten a good idea of what's going on. First and foremost, I guess it's be a decent human being when you're talking about and talking to the dealership personnel. It's like, unless they're combative to you, and still just walk away. There's a dealer in another town that may act totally different to you. And normally your selling dealer is going to treat you the best because in my experience, and like I said, it's been a long time. I don't know if this is true anymore, but hey, they bought it here. The potential for them to buy another vehicle here is greater than if we don't treat them well and we send them on down the road. So again, be a decent human being. Those people are people too. And educate yourself. Print out this bulletin, go to the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration's website, type in 2024 Silverado, and there's all of these documents that are in there. You can even see right at the very end a quarterly report that says, as of July 15th, there are 597,571 vehicles in this recall population. They have remedied 32,000. So they're scratching the surface. And then total unreachable, 134, probably totaled or whatever in an accident where there's no way. And then 15 of them were removed because of who knows why. But that's on there too. So that's a quarterly report that comes out from the U.S. Department of Transportation and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's website. And that's all in there, folks. And it's, like I say, the internet can be a good thing sometimes. But, again, if you want to find a recall on your wife's vehicle, if there's a recall on it, you want to get those done. I know there's still a lot of those Takata airbags running around that could potentially cause some issues. So, again, just wanted to go over all that stuff. I hope you had a great time listening, and I appreciate everybody being on board. And thank you for listening to the All Automotive Podcast. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of the All Automotive Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Clausen. I hope you got a lot of information about this recall, and any recall that's on your vehicle, you can go to that website, check it out. Hopefully you can get it fixed and be on your way.
The All Automotive Podcast is brought to you today by GeForce Automotive, where we make friends one car repair at a time. Until next time, hey, keep that greasy side down.